A friendly good afternoon to wherever the Byron Show may find the BetSperts Golf channel on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon at 1 Central Time over here for the Midwesterners on the show. Ron, we got the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. We got 80 golfers to designated signature, marquee, whatever you want to call it, event this week. And it's going to be full of really good golfers hitting some good shots this week. How are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, signature event. We have weather conditions. Pebble Beach, the greatest meeting of land and sea on the PGA Tour. Yeah, we do have, I guess you could say, probably one of the strongest fields in a long time here. But it's kind of like at the same time, it's a shame this field isn't even stronger than what it could be. And yeah, I don't know about you, but it's just a little hard right now to get really excited about golf in general until we can kind of get the whole band back together again.
I'm not that despondent as many are, because golf to me is just golf at the end of the day, especially this week. We're going to get the majority of the best players again doing their thing, so kind of looking forward to that. But the just general friction in the atmosphere around the golf world is just not my thing. I hate conflict and guys leaving and going and coming and doing all this stuff. It doesn't sit well with me. I'm hoping we can kind of get that stuff figured out here soon and kind of, collab back with, get the band back together again. We're missing a lot of good personalities in particular. So we'll see how it goes. But you mentioned some weather to start off the show. From what I understand and what I've checked out, it's going to be cold, it's going to be rainy, but the conditions are going to be very scoreable, in my opinion, for the first 3 days. Then we don't quite know what's going to happen on Sunday. We don't even know if we're going to get a fourth round of golf. We don't know if they're going to play 36 holes on Saturday. We don't know if they're going to play on Monday. What on earth's going to happen is yet to be decided, but we've got some incredible weather coming in on Sunday, and it's going to be windy as heck. So I want to get your opinion on how you're going to be playing this weather this week.
I firmly believe, when conditions get tough, and yeah, like you said, like it's people are acting like it's going to be horrible, like a hurricane. Like it's going to be bad on Sunday as of now, which again could change very quickly. But yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, looks like a lot of scattered showers. It is going to be cold, low 50s. You could always, it doesn't look like a lot of wind gusts. But yeah, whenever you get potential for these conditions, wind, rain, mud, I think it does level the playing field to an extent. And, I think this week is wide open. I took a lot of long shots betting wise. I think some of those numbers, when you drop down to that kind of that middle tier, some of those numbers just ballooned too big, in my opinion. When you got Wyndham Clark going at 100-1, Ricky Fowler, for as bad as he's been, his two strengths are still approach and putting. And, when he's 175-1, so
Yeah.
I also think with this being a no-cut event, everybody guaranteed 4 rounds. You can definitely go stars and scrubs pretty easily this week. And I think actually when we dig in here, there's enough win equity combined with value in the 9K range where you can fit 4 of those guys in and still feel pretty good about things.
Yes, there's so much value. Those balance builds are going to be coming in real hot and heavy. My suggestion this week, with pricing being as soft as it is to leave some money on the table, because that, depending on what kind of contest you get into and all that jazz, but leaving cash on the table in this kind of a pricing slate is completely fine. I don't think you're going to be leaving too much value out there, because if you take a look at someone like Matt Fitzpatrick, for instance, I'm going to be fading him, but he's $8,200. Sung J M, $8,500. Like that, if you price those guys in the 9,500s with Ludwig and Sam Burns and Spieth, I wouldn't be batting too much of an eye. I know there's some course history influenced in there, so let's chat about that before we dive into the slate, Ron. Typically, we see course history pretty prevalent, one of the better predictors of success based off past results. But that was in fields that were very top heavy. We'd have a few superstars playing in them, like Jordan, like Cantlay. But playing up against, guys that are just trying to make their way on the PGA Tour. This week, we have basically a US Open caliber field, at least for the 80 guys that are playing. And it's going to be really interesting to navigate the ownership landmines based off of course history in those weaker events, where guys that haven't played you in the past show up and fit this course really well. So I'm kind of curious as to if you kind of leaning that direction, or how you're playing the course history angle this week?
Yeah, for me this week, and you made some great points there because the field strength is completely different, and just a lot of these guys haven't played here or have not been here in years, very sporadically. So for me, it's more about, instead of just looking at Pebble Beach itself, it's which of these guys have had past success on the West Coast, early part of the season on POA greens, this type of agronomy that we'll see this week. So that's kind of the angle I'm looking at a little bit more, instead of strictly course history. I have that much weighted a lot lower in my model this week, and instead just looking at more of a general, like, short courses, coastal. I have a coastal model this week where it kind of looks at similar conditions like they're going to see, where you get the wind, you get the wet weather, and just kind of who plays well historically on those types of courses.
Yeah, perfect. I'm loving that. Course fit over course history for me in a DFS contest this week. Very important. If you're going to be betting, you're betting against the books, that's fine. Lean into that course history. It's not necessarily the game theory that you're looking against the bookies that hard. But also, I'm leaning more into DFS this week than I am placement market, because I just don't want my guys to play well the first 3 rounds and then go out there on Sunday late in the day and get swept off the course for some bad wind luck. So the only placement bet, and I'll mention it when we get into 9Ks. But Ron, tell me how deep you got on the filtering for the rabbit hole this week at betspertsgolf.com. What kind of filters did you get to like get some really specific, unique kind of outcomes?
Yeah, you mentioned it. There's so many options, and again, that's why I call it the rabbit hole, because you can pretty much go as deep as you want to. And for this week, like I mentioned, we have a coastal course filter, which is really beneficial this week. Obviously, we have a stronger field than we've ever had, so you kind of dig into who plays well in stronger fields. Again, both of these courses this week are short. Among the top 5 when you're talking about Spyglass Hill and Pebble, top 5 shortest on tour. So I kind of took that angle as well. And then you get into no cut events. We have the Xander Schauffele's, Justin Thomas. Those two from the upper tier especially play really well historically. Is there a correlation with that or not? Don't know for sure, but no cut events, those two are strong. And then one I really liked digging into was Pebble Beach has the most bunkers on tour, and they are among the toughest around the green, those greenside bunkers. And even at Spyglass Hill, which is a very underrated course, really tough, deep bunkers around the greens. And so, we have a filter on the rabbit hole where you can look at not only courses that have a large number of bunkers, but also courses that have a very difficult sand safe percentage. And so just kind of going back and looking historically at, what kind of players have success. And, you see, the guys who have won here, Justin Rose, for example, really good, difficult bunker player. And so, this, if you haven't gone on the rabbit hole yet, we have, a promo with Vivid Picks. If you're in a legal state for Vivid, $5 and you get access to everything on BetSperts Golf, including the rabbit hole for the entire season. And we have promos, even if you're not in a state, that you could use. So if you haven't tried it yet, it's obviously I'm biased, but it's way better than anything out there.
It's fantastic. It's a wonderful tool, Ron, and I'm very I'm very, very proud of what you guys are building over there, and it's incredible there. So definitely consider that, and hopefully you are in one of those states that can get you a really good deal. Let's dive into not the best deal here at the top of the board at $11,500 for Rory McIlroy on a golf course that basically eliminates his biggest strength. When he won over in Dubai, I saw his leading strokes gain statistic was off the tee. I will be shocked to see if that's the case again this week. I'm not entirely sure how predictive anything off the tee is going to be. So kind of interesting to see the guys that do the elite drivers of the golf ball. They kind of get brought back into the pack. They're out into a headwind basically, and everyone's drafting behind them still now because they're not kind of stuck 20, 30 yards behind them anymore. So especially with it being this wet, errant drivers of the golf ball that kind of might find themselves landing in the fairway, but going in a direction that could bounce once or twice and into the hazard. If it's wet this week, it could just stop right there. So, the guys on the tour really like a soft golf course that helps them with scoring. I think I'm going to be looking for birdie makers, and I'm going to be going to Scotty instead at 11-4. I think if I take a look at Scotty's putting splits on POA, he's about field average from 5 to 15 feet. I think he's going to be hitting a lot of shots to 5 to 15 feet, no matter where he's coming from. He's an incredibly good iron play. He's very good with the wedges on strokes gain side of things, and he can get up and down from just about anywhere. So the bunker play, though, now that you mention it, Scotty's typically never been the best bunker player, but I think he's going to be ball striking it well enough to avoid those kind of traps early on. And then if it gets windy, it gets windy on Sunday. So I'm going to just keep playing Scotty until the wheels fall off or the cows come home, one of the two, and see what happens, Ron. I'm kind of curious as to who you leading to in the 11K range before we dive into the 10s.
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest, like not a lot really excites me from either of these two. Now, I'll say, we definitely kind of have course fit issues with Rory. Now, he's been playing fantastic. So, yeah. I mean, you can't really complain too much, but I just think, his elite driving skill is going to be devalued here. He's losing that big advantage. Scotty, yes, I do agree with you. He is slightly better on POA, believe it or not. But, has that overall putting skill improved? This, just from what we've seen so far lately, still really tough to see that. Now, if I'm forced to choose one, I'm definitely taking Scotty. I just think, when we're talking about some wind, he's used to playing, in those conditions in Texas, he's more of a mutter type player who I think, when he has to be creative, when he has to come up with stuff, I do trust him more than, Rory in certain instances for those situations. So yeah, it's just, it's tough up here. I just think there's so much value below these two that, I think you can get away with kind of skipping the top if you really want to.
Yeah. The main reason I'm playing Scotty is not just because he's the world number one and a ball striking phenom from tee to green, but at 11-4 in a field like this, I think with the amount of value that you can find down south, he could land up being in the teens quite easily ownership wise. And if you're giving him the world number one in the teens, in a field that has soft pricing like this, I can still get some really good golfers in the lineup, even after you're dropping $11,400 at the top there. So that's kind of just my little game theory angle on him, hoping that he kind of catches some people off guard and we catch some good ownership on his behalf. Next up, we got Victor Hovland and Xander Schauffele at 10-2 and 10 flat to kind of only give us four guys in the $10,000 range. In a field like this, only having four guys in the 10K, 11K range is really interesting. I think I was expecting a bit more. Would not have been surprised to have seen Cantley or Colin or Max. Max, we'll get to shortly, but all the way $800 cheaper than the 10K range. So again, I think these guys in this range are particularly going to be left alone for the most part. Neither Victor or Xander are very good wedge players, despite Xander playing great golf recently. If you're going to be looking for someone in this department, I want a winner. Victor's one of those guys. Xander, not so much. The guy's perennially outside the top three or so, kind of always just getting close, but no cigar. And I don't know if I'm going to deal with either of these two guys. I'm going to play Scotty and then pretty much dive into the 9K range if I have to. Thoughts?
So Pebble Beach is a second shot course if there ever was one. And like you said, wedge play is huge this week. Players are going to kind of be provided with a very challenging test of, patience, pitching wedges and pull-up putting, kind of a lot of P's here at Pebble. And, the best wedge players typically do win here. And, I even go back to Jordan Spieth's quote on Pebble Beach being a dart throwing contest to see who can make the most putts. And so, we have, just going back, looking at the weather, here in Cali, it's been a cold, wet winter thus far. So I think kind of similar to last year, we're going to have softer greens. And like you said at the beginning, the first 3 days, I think scoring conditions are going to be very similar to last year. Not a birdie fest by any means, but, for me, one thing I did is I went and looked at strokes gain approach on small greens combined with POA putting over the last 5 years. And top two guys, and far and away the number one guy was Max Homa, gaining 1.53 strokes per round. And then you got Victor second at 1.26. And so, I think for Hovland, I think he's a value at 10.2 for me. So, and he's more than 1,000 cheaper. than Rory and Scheffler. And I think, in my opinion, he's a better course fit. He's won the U.S. Amateur here. He's had success here in a variety of conditions. The numbers say he's one of the best coastal. So for me, Victor is a definite play. And then he dropped down here to Max. When you look at his history on the West Coast, 4 of his 6 PGA wins have been in his home state of California. He's got 3 top 15 finishes here. I think he's become an excellent, kind of over time, an excellent bad weather player. He's got, this really good knockdown shot in the wind. And his form has remained so consistent. He's got 8 straight top 15s going back to July. So I think those 2 are going to be, and I know their ownership is kind of near the top level here. But I just don't think, me personally, I can get around not playing those 2 overweight, like really overweight, like maybe 50%. And then, yeah, like you said, the rest of these guys up here, Cantlay has faded badly the past 2 weekends. And the kind of the troubling thing for me is these are courses he typically thrives on. And, Xander, like you said, he's as safe as you can get at 10K, but is he actually going to win? So, you're trying to pick a winner here. I think Hovland and Homa for me are my 2 building blocks.
They're definite winners, those 2. But for me, I'm out on Hovland in particular because if you take a look at what he gets up to on approach, his strokes gained come out of the rough. Like when he's out of the rough, he's elite. There's like hardly anyone better than him out of the rough. And I think they're going to be hitting, particularly Hovland, about 75% of his shots are going to be coming from the fairway this week. So it's going to be interesting to see that department and how it unfolds. But, that's just one reason I'm going to be fading one of those guys. You can't play everybody, and I've got to give myself a reason not to. So we'll leave him alone. As you said with Cantlay, grades out well, but what on earth has he been up to every time he gets, near the top of the leaderboard? Also kind of just been never broke par around Torrey South in 3 rounds of golf. Did the majority of his scoring on the North course. Unbelievable stuff. So I don't know about him. I like Justin Thomas a lot this week. I've been out on Justin Thomas for the last while he was playing poorly and everyone wanted to make JT a thing. I wasn't. Now I think I'm down. I've accepted. I've seen the results. If you tell me that he's not playing good golf right now, you're lying, because the last 5 times he's teed it up, he's finished 5th and got progressively better. I think 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 3rd or something like that. So it's been really, really impressive golf from him. He's been putting well over that stint too, which to me is not a Justin Thomas thing. So he's been putting really nicely. Goes to a course like this where he's going to be dialing in wonderful shots on approach. And if there's anyone in this field or the world that I would trust in a hurricane worth of wind to play a good golf, it's Justin Thomas. Him and Spieth, I guess, are both there. But JT, in my opinion, can hit the shots that are needed. And the way he's striking the ball now can do that now on demand. So he's the only placement bet I made outside of Peter Malnati, which we'll get to here shortly too. But Justin Thomas top 10 for me was the only placement bet because I feel like he's condition proof. If he plays badly, he plays badly. It's not going to be because of the weather. I think once the weather rolls through, he's got an edge on the majority of the field. So I love JT. Love what he's been doing lately. Love the course fit. Love the condition fit. Love how he can make tons of birdies. Love how he's riding the rock. I might be playing quite a lot of Justin Thomas this week as a little pivot off of Jordan Spieth and Max Homa in that range. So someone else I kind of eyeing out down in the bottom 9s is Colin Morikawa, hoping that he can just thrive in these relatively calmer conditions on a golf course that should suit his target practice type performance. Like if you think about a soft, short golf course, Colin Morikawa is going to tear that sucker up, and he putts kind of well on POA. If you take a look at what Colin's been up to in the past, he's only 37th and 45th on POA putting versus being in the 60s for all other surfaces. So I'm kind of in the mood to play some Colin Morikawa, hoping that he can survive Sunday in the 9K. So JT and Colin, my 2 favorites, and then I might sprinkle in a little bit of Max here and there.
Yeah, and going back to my combination of combining, approach on small greens and POA putting, Justin Thomas is 3rd on that list, gaining 1.06 strokes per round. So yeah, he's looked really well, and he would definitely, other than Homa, be my second choice in this kind of this 9K range. So I completely agree with you. And then Morikawa is a guy who, I don't understand his price. I know he has kind of struggled, missed the cut, last week, but 9,100, on a course where, you have literally the smallest greens on tour, and that's one of the few ways, that players can separate themselves is by, elite iron play. And, honestly, we agree he's one of the best iron players in the world. So, I think struggles aside, I know some people have issues with him, not being a good win player. But in my coastal model, like, he's actually third in this field. And I know that doesn't capture wind, exactly. But, I love Morikawa this week. At that price, you can do so much. I mean, if you went Hovland, Homa, Morikawa as your top three,
Oof.
like you can still fit in the 7K range. You don't even have to dip into the sixes. So
yeah,
I love those three guys.
Yeah, or JT Homer
Mhm.
Morikawa. That would be like a crazy start too,
Mhm.
because what you average out at 8,700 to start, and then if your most expensive dude is 9,600, I mean, you're barely diminishing that remaining salary there. So love those guys in that range for sure. Into the eights, where it's a little bit more jam packed and some really interesting value. And I'm kind of looking at my color coding here, and I'm seeing a lot of white, which signifies a lot of my outrights. So I'm assuming you're going to have a few outrights in this salary range here too, Ron. I'll start off with my favorite non-outright bet that I didn't make this week because I don't think he's going to win a tournament, but I think he might go a little. He's looking popular, but I wonder if people get off him. It's Tony Finau. I think people are going to be really sketched out by his putting. The guy's balling out from tee to green right now. And I know people are saying, oh, you take the driver out of his hand, it's one of his biggest weapons. He's not really like an elite driver of the golf ball. He hits it far, but he's not like going to be taking away a portion of his strokes gained on the field as much as you're going to take away his irons if there ever was a course that nullified iron play. So I love what Tony Finau can do from a ball striking perspective as a second shot golf course. He's just phenomenal from far away because there's that wedge proximity from like 100 to 150, and then 200 and out. I've been eyeing in on those numbers too, and he's third in the field in good shots from that range. So he can absolutely take care of these par fives and potentially just two-putt his way to a birdie on those holes versus having to make it in from 5 or 7 feet. Some other names I'm going to mention and throw it your way. I've got Tom Kim, Benny On, and Nikolai Højgaard sitting at $8,100 and $8,000 flat. Those three are going to be a very foundational part of my week. Nikolai Højgaard in particular being a very, very good wedge player. If you took a look at last year's 2023 stats from 100 to 125 in proximity for 2023, Nikolai Højgaard's first on the PGA Tour. 51 shots. It's a decent amount of shots, but even if you extrapolate that a little bit, water down his numbers a bit, he's still number one. It's going to move him to number 10 or so. So he's an elite wedge player from that range and hits lots of good shots in great form, coming from a course where, the driver definitely helped him at the South course, but he's not necessarily that good of a long iron player. I think he's going to thrive a bit more on the second shot course, which is a bit more European in nature, where he does come from. So lots to like about him. And then Tom Kim going to be my leverage play in this department. Love the course fit. The putting has been atrocious, but he's one of the better wedge players. Also very good with the long irons when he's feeling it. And if there's a person that does have his driver nullified the opposite way, where his accuracy off the tee with the driver can be exaggerated here, it's Tom Kim. So he's going to be hitting drivers when everyone has to hit 3-woods or whatever. I think he's still relatively lengthy anyway, but you get my point. He's going to be accurate as heck off the tee, and I don't think anyone's really going to be owning him in that much capacity. So curious as to who you're leaning into in this range. At the bottom, did I mention Sam Burns as well? I'll just say that, and then you can talk to me about the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think this 8K range is where you can really get some really solid leverage plays in here. Just looking at some of the ownership right now. I'll start at the bottom because I completely agree with you on Tom Kim. He appears to be completely off the radar this week, and probably rightly so, just based on some sketchy performances recently. But I mean, he literally just won the Shriners 3 months ago. So he has struggled losing 4.5 strokes at Kapalua. Missed the cut at the Amex. But again, he's a guy that I'm banking on his win equity here on a course that plays to his strengths on approach. And yes, he has been struggling with the putter, but he's very streaky as well. And that's another thing that I looked at on the rabbit hole is we have a floor ceiling filter, which you can go in and not only can you look at, how often a player spikes putting on approach, but you can also look at how often do they do it in strong fields or on coastal courses. So you can literally combine these two things together. And yeah, it can be a little noisy at times, but just looking at how much he tends to pop with the putter, as much as he has bad weeks with it, I think that's what it takes to win some of these events is if he has a good putting week or maybe even just average with the flat stick. He's a guy who has the upside, he has the ceiling to win very easily this week. And so I love him. Jason Day, okay, so he's obviously the course horse. His current form has not been good. But when you look at, again, he has not finished worse than 24th here. This includes 5 top 7s. And so he's a guy, when I see him right now at 7%, if it was above that, I probably wouldn't. But I'm going to, again, bank on his success here, combined with his past history in poor weather conditions and on coastal courses and on the West Coast where he has always shined. So, again, if he can just get his irons dialed in, I'll take my chances with him there. And Hideki, back again. I think I've been on him every week he's played this year so far. But when you look, if you actually dig into his numbers, he gained 3.8 strokes at the Farmers last week. He gained 2.4 ball striking at the Sony, So, it's not like he's playing poorly. It's obviously the issues with the putter again. So, he's a guy who I just think when you look at the win equity, I'm going to take those chances. And then I'll conclude with Fitz here. Under these circumstances, when you look at, the weather conditions and, I think you can kind of probably throw Fleetwood in here as well. Just a few months ago, he won the Dunhill Links over there in Europe, which was a very wet event. And so, I just think similar to Victor Hovland, he's had some good finishes here. I think he thrives in these conditions. And so, I'm going to spread it around a little bit more in this range. But I do think there's a couple leverage options here that you can maybe separate yourself a little bit.
Yeah. I'm out on Fleetwood and Fitz because I think everyone's going to kind of lean into that crappy weather narrative, but they are very bad wedge players, both of them. Not like Fitz is horrific with the wedge, but also I understand that there's Harbour Town comps where the smaller greens, Fitz is going to be playing a bit better on those. I feel like Harbour Town is not as wedge intensive. It's a bit longer, it still forces you to hit from longer distances away compared to I might be wrong. I'm just kind of going off the fly there, but I'm out on Fitz in general, especially if the conditions are going to be scoreable. I don't trust him to get tons and tons under par. So that's my reasoning. Do with that what you want. Diving into the 7s, got another main man over here. I couldn't believe they dropped an 80-1 on him. I think it's still even out there on Seth Theegala. The guy, if you think about the courses that he's played at not Harbour Town. He's played well at Harbour Town, but he scrambled his face off there. Won the 40 net just a few starts ago. 7 starts ago was the 40 net for Sahith. Finished at 2nd at Kapalua. 2 courses with heavily intensive wedge play. He's one of the better wedge players when you come to good shot rate. So hitting it from a wedge range to inside 6 feet. Sign me up for that. He's one of the top guys in that department, and he's also one of the top power putters. So he's PPP, perfect for me, Ron. I'm all about Sahith. Putting, power, performance, precision, and he's going to be my pony this week for sure. I know he's not necessarily played that well this year, or at this venue in the past, but he says he's figured it out. I was watching a bit of No Laying Up, and he said he's done hitting draws off of fade lies because it flips the club at impact and makes him hit these flippy hooks. So he's going to be hitting little chip fades into these greens this week, which I think is going to be the way to kind of approach it, as they're going to be soft. You can hit a low trajectory little shot in there anyway, control the spin, and I think he's going to be just fine. So he's got winning potential. The guy's finished 2nd and won a tournament in his last 7 starts, $7,900. So I don't care how popular he is, I'll go back to him anyway. And then I'll jump right down to Adam Scott, who, if you take a look at like a filter for just the Pebble Beach Pro-Am in general, I don't think he's made the cut yet in the last 2 times he's played. But if you go take a look at the US Open and just filter on Pebble Beach Golf Course, he hasn't lost, I think, more than 1.3 strokes. He's gained, like his worst round was 1.5 strokes gained. He's averaging like 2.4 strokes gained on this course in the last 6 rounds. So he's got exceptional course history on Pebble. Spyglass, it's another beast. So he has to just figure his stuff out on Spyglass. That's 1 round out of the 4. And if you look at what Adam Scott gets up to, he's 16th in the field in wedge play when hitting good shots. So lots to like there. He putts very well on POA. I'm all for Adam Scott this week. He's also out there at 80 to 1, $7,600. I don't think he's looking like that popular right now. Give me Adam Scott all day, every day. Who are you liking, Ron, for this 7K range?
So we'll just looking at the top half. So for me, it's I think we might be on some different guys, which is a good perspective to be kind of a little different here. But yeah. I think JT Poston at 7,900 is a guy who, his approach game is just so dramatically improved. And I don't have his exact wedge numbers in front of me, but he's the kind of guy that I think can really score on a course like Pebble. And so Poston is a guy I'm going to be on. And then for me, kind of, it's dropping down here. There's not a lot until I get to Brian Harman at 76. Okay. I just think this is another course fit for him. Just a guy who, even when he does miss greens and he's not the best approach player, even though he is really good with his wedges, just his around the green play, he's world class in that area. Really good on short courses, obviously being not as long of a hitter off the tee. So he's a guy I love here. I think Justin Rose, just digging into the numbers, whether it was bunker play, whether it was, coastal courses, Rose just has, obviously he won here last year. But I feel really comfortable with Rose. He finished 10th overall in my model, and he's sitting here at 7,500. And ownership looks to be pretty low. I'm seeing 5-6% right now. And then probably my favorite play, and he is the most owned guy right now. I'm seeing around 13% on this range. But I think Eric Cole, while he doesn't have much experience on POA greens yet, he fits the exact profile needed to win here. When you talk about his approach play, his elite putting skills, coming off his first missed cut in 8 months, I definitely expect a rebound performance this week. And yeah, if you look, he's top 20 in this strong field. When you look at his last 36 rounds, whether it's putting, short game, wedge play, he's even second in this entire field in birdie or better percentage. So I wouldn't be surprised if his ownership, even goes up a little bit more, because he is, to me, probably the best value play on the whole slate.
Yeah, he's ultra affordable down there for what he can offer you. And, just if you think about why he missed the cut, it was a weird situation, because he actually dropped the ball on the course that he should have scored on very well on the north side. And, just did what he did on the south after kind of pretty much knowing he had to shoot like a course record around the south side to get back inside the cut on a course that does not suit his driving at all. So, it was kind of interesting that he gave it up early, but I think he's going to bounce back. For someone to miss the cut for the first time in 8 months, who plays as much as he does, this guy's got to be like chomping at the bit, especially ending on the cut being on Thursday. This guy hasn't played professional golf in forever now. This is an eternity for him, like 5 or 6 days in between. So we'll see what cooks with there. I know he's going to be very popular, but I do like that play a lot. I'll throw out some Nick Taylor in this department as well. I think he's going to be someone that's won you in the past. He's also typically a very streaky iron player with the wedges and the short irons there. If you take a look at what he did at RBC Canadian Open, that's also about a 30% wedge fest, within that range on approach. So he won that, putted lights out. He's won at this golf course before. Sign me up for Nick Taylor. He puts nicely on POA. He's $7,200. And I think he might not be a terrible pivot off of Eric Cole if you are looking to do that, or play him with Eric Cole to kind of water down that ownership to a degree. $7,200 as well as Kevin Yu. I don't know how popular he's going to be, because who the hell knows, but he's just a very interesting situation right now. This guy's just out of nowhere playing incredible golf. And I don't think I care about what course it is, because the Amex, the Farmers, he's pretty darn good on any situation. So sign me up for some Kevin Yu. The guy's very streaky. I'll take him at $7,200. He's been flirting with the lead a few weeks in a row now. So give me that. And then I'll end with, I'll play Brendan Todd in DFS. There's no way I'm playing this guy in any sort of betting market because I don't see him hanging inside the top 20. This guy just ejects himself from the top of the leaderboard harder than anyone does over the weekend. So I'll be definitely fading him in matchups potentially over the course of the week as they get closer to the weekend. But I like him early on in the week, showdown in particular, round one leader kind of stuff. I think this course fits him perfectly, but I think the field is too strong for him to hang with them, kind of like we saw at the Century. He's hanging right at the top of the leaderboard. I think he finished, like 17th at the end of the week. So it was a bit of a rough ending there, which I can expect again from him. So curious as to if you have any other guys in the bottoms there, or if you want to dive into the sixes and kind of, I've got a lot of guys I like in the sixes this week too.
Yeah, just really quick, agree on Brendan Todd. He's the exact type of player we want to target on these, shorter, less than driver courses. We saw him finish, runner-up last year. So yeah, if you're in the course fit, Brendan Todd fits this course to a T. Yeah, going down here, I agree on Nick Taylor as well. I think he's a guy, and like we've talked about this so many times on here. As much as I have kind of de-weighted course history this week, I think Nick Taylor is a guy who you almost have to play as well, and he's had a pretty good start to the year. So agree on him. I think looking, and I'll get into the sixes, and there's not a ton because, like I said, I'm going to be pretty heavy on that 9 and 8K range to where I don't have to come down here, but I'm going to give you your guy again. Seabez had a great week, and again, this is another week where he is popping in my model, finishing in the top 30 again, and so still coming in pretty low owned. So I do like him. Tom Hoagie. Hoagie is 25th on my model this week, and of course he had the victory here 2 years ago. So I do love Hoagie here. Again, anytime we get, the smallest greens on tour, even if Hoagie has horrible form, I'm going to play him just based on that alone. Yeah. And then kind of, if you go down here, I'll just say one more. But I think Maverick McNeely, I also saw him. I don't know if you saw that on the No Laying Up today, but he sounds like he's fully healthy again. And he loves... Like he basically made it sound like he is a completely different player when he gets out here to the West Coast, and especially Pebble Beach, where he's played maybe more than any other player in this field. Of course, he has a great course history here as well. So I think he's a guy, before he was injured, he was approaching, still hasn't won on tour yet, but he was getting close a few times. And I just think his comfort level out here, 6,200. 2% owned. Like, sign me up. I'll play 15% Maverick McNeely this week with no problem.
I think he's going to catch a bit of steam, though. I really do, because I think the course history is too appealing for people. For me, I had a very bad experience with him because I bet him at 80-1 going into round 4 at the Farmers, hoping for just like a spike putting performance. Where the heck did he finished at the Farmers? He freaking landed up finishing himself. Where's Maverick McNeely over here? It just complete meltdown. Just could not get it done. At the Farmers, he finished 37th after being 10th going into the final round. So he's one of those guys who I'm going to be playing in Showdown a lot and then kind of laying off him as the week goes along, because he's like Brendan Todd. Once he gets a taste of the lead, it's like too good. He just throws up on himself for some reason. So I'm not entirely sure why, but he just isn't there yet for me. Like going into the final round at Torrey, where he's been playing great golf, in contention, ejection, so we can expect that again from him, I would say, at a course like this too, even though he is prone to play well. I'll scoot back up to Tom Hoagie with you. Love him. I also really fancy myself some Peter Malnati. I said I bet him for a top 20 at plus 900. If you take a look what Peter's done on the West Coast at the Genesis Invitational at Riv, at Torrey, and at this golf course, he's finished T25 or better in half of his last 12 starts. He finished 20th or better in 3 consecutive appearances in all these different courses last year. Missed the cut last week at Torrey by bogeying the easiest hole on the North Course, number 17. Bogeyed that hole, which is basically losing 2 shots to the field. It was playing at like 4.07 strokes on a par 5, and he bogeyed it and then bogeyed the final hole to miss the cut on the number. Phoebe also doesn't like Peter Malnati doing that kind of stuff. So we're going to kind of go back to him this week. I also have him to win this tournament at 1,000 to 1. I put $5 on that. So if he wins this tournament, I'm living La Vida Loca. It was a complete, like, just take the worst odds in the field, but we've seen what he can do. He finished fourth year last year. So who the heck really knows? We saw Lucas Glover show up on No Laying Up. I love him in these kind of blue collar conditions too. And on these smaller greens, I can see him just throwing darts. He's a great wedge player. And the driving ability on this golf course is going to be totally fine. And then someone that I've always said, great golfer, horrible competitor. At $6,800, I can stomach a Taylor Montgomery because he's going to be scoring so many DFS points for you. He makes birdies at an elite rate when he's playing well. He is playing well, and he's back on the West Coast. He putts on POA very, very well, and he's also a fantastic wedge player. 6th in the field in good shot rate for wedges for old Monty. So I'm going to go the full Monty there, play a lot of him this week at $6,800. Expect the ejection kind of thing, kind of slip out of the top 10 on Sunday, but who the hell knows if it gets windy. His short game scrambling ability is really, really good too. So those are the guys there, and I have a Bezzy outright as well at 120 to 1. So I think he's going to be just fine for us. I think we can really get behind him this week. I'll be playing him in DFS as well because he's not going to be very popular. Cool. Are we in the mood for another dollar bet, Ron? I think we 1-1 over the year so far.
Yeah, let's do it. You set the ground rules this week.
Cool. Who did we? Let's go. I'll take on Fitz. Do you want to? I'll take Fitz. You can pick one of my favorite guys that I've kind of mentioned in that range, but I want to pick on Fitz this week for you.
Oh, so we're selecting for the other person.
Yeah, how about that? So yeah, if I have mentioned a favorite guy in the show so far, that you're not a fan of, you can kind of match him up against Fitz, either like within like $500 to $700 worth of price range.
Oh, okay, because you've gushed over Malnati, so I was about to go with Peter.
Fitz versus Malnati is like
you've got an outright on him. You think he's going to win, so let's see here. Let's see, who did you I
can take like Sam Burns.
You know what? No, I've got someone because I don't agree with you on Thigala this week.
Okay.
So
perfect.
I'm going to go with Thigala. So let's do that. Fitz versus Thigala.
Dollar. Thigala versus Fitzy. I love it. That's going to be a good one to watch. I love tilting over Fitz because, he gives me.
And congratulations to you, before I forget, on your nomination for Golf Writer of the Year. So you do such great work. If you're not following Byron, if you don't see all the work he puts in every week, I start reading it and I'm like, whoa, this is deep. And so, if you like golf data, you're one of the best out there. So congratulations.
Thank you, Ron. Really appreciate that. Coming from someone who knows his stuff in that realm of the world as well. It's really, really nice to hear those words. I think I've really stumbled upon like my favorite thing in the golf writing world is like those research articles where I just go balls to the wall and just go down a rabbit hole, kind of thing. So it's been fun, and it was nice to kind of get that nomination there. So thank you for that. Awesome. Speaking of rabbit hole, make sure you go and check out the rabbit hole there at betspurtsgolf.com. Get the vivid $5 for the rest of the year kind of thing, or whatever good discount promo code Ron will send you if you DM him asking for that to get in behind the scenes there. Other than that, Ron, let's have ourselves a week. Don't forget, always remember to pivot your face off.